In the fast-paced world of project management, having real-time insights into your financial situation is not just a luxury, it's a necessity. Every penny counts, and understanding where it's been spent can be the difference between a project's success and failure. But beyond just tracking, what if you could effortlessly add new cost data? How do you seamlessly integrate this financial tracking into a database you may already use? And crucially, how do you make sure that this is a user-friendly experience, whether you're entering details in the construction site or looking at data back at your desk? Hi, I'm Kevin from Budibase, and today I'd like to show you how to build just such a system, a comprehensive project dashboard that allows you to enter new data and visualize the data that you already have. Designed for both desktop and mobile, the application makes sure that you're in control wherever you are. Let's have a look at what we're building. I have some cards to show the total amount we spent this month and whether or not we're under or over budget. And then by project, I have the current spend alongside the current budget. So we're doing pretty well. I also have two other charts. I've got a pie chart showing how many transactions per each category. So you can see materials or most of our transactions, machinery and equipment, our labor somewhere over here. And then over each month of this calendar year, how much we've spent or expect to spend. As well as this dashboard, we have a form where you can fill in which project you're working on, which category it fills in, describe what's going on, give the amount and the date. And we have this summary table, which allows us to paginate through all of the entries, click on them for more details, and be able to see more about what's going on inside of your project. That's what we're going to build step by step. Let's dive in. Once you've logged into Budibase, you'll land on the portal from where you can create your new application. So create new app. And we have the option to use templates that have already been created to give you a head start. You can import an app that you've already made, either locally or in the cloud, or you can start from scratch, which is what we're going to do. I'm going to call this Project Costs and press Create App. At Budibase, everything starts with the data. At Budibase, the first thing we need to do is import our data. If you don't have data already, you can create a table using Budibase's internal database. You can use a collection of REST endpoints, any relational or non-relational database that you might be using, or even a spreadsheet application like Airtable or Google Sheets. I'm going to use a PostgreSQL database. I need my connection string, which for me is host.docker.internal. The database I'm going to be using is called project_costs. And I've got my username and password to fill in. I'll press connect. And now I can decide which of the tables that exist in my database do I want to import. All of them or some sub-selection. I want all, so I'll just click fetch tables. Both the tables from my database have been imported. I have the costs table and I have the projects table. I want the project table to be known by its project name. So I'll use this as the display column. And I want my costs table, this is a harder one. I'm going to use the ID. It's the only unique identifier I have. So I'll use that as the display column. Now these last two fields, I want to configure a little more. For description, I want this to have more detail. I want it to be a long text field. So I'll hit the three dots. I'll go to edit column and I'll change this to be long form text. For the project name, I want it to be one of the projects I have configured so far. So I'll click my three dots, edit column, and I'm going to change this to be options, and I'll say it needs to be required. Now I'll enter all of the options. Save. And each of those projects have been color coded in my data section, which is great. I'm going to do the same for category. I'll three dots, edit column, and change this to be options, and I'll add in the options. Labor, materials, machinery and equipment, permits and licensing, infrastructure, and miscellaneous. Now that we have our data set up, let's go to the Design tab and add a data collection form. So I'll click on blank screen. I'll call this Add and Continue. And now I've got the option to set our role-based access control. By default, that's basic, which means our users need to log in. We can set it to public, which means anyone can add a new record to our database. And Power and Admin are both elevated roles that we can use to segment our application. I'm going to leave it at basic and click Done. I've got my screen options, my navigation options, and now I can add some components. I'm just going to add a form block. This form block is going to be our new cost block. It's going to be a create rather than update or review. It's going to be adding to the costs table rather than to the users or the projects table. I'm going to say add new cost. I'm going to set the size to be large, and I'm going to rearrange these fields a little. I'm going to move project name to be at the top, category to be next, description, amount, and date incurred. I'm going to drop off the updated at and the created at. So because my data has been set up as options, I have an option picker here. Because I set my data as long form text, I've got a larger box here. And because this is a date, I have a date picker here. I can use these cogs to rename things. So maybe I say which project and get rid of the placeholder. For the next one, I'll say which category, get rid of the placeholder. And I'll just fix the capitals for some of the others. So capital D for description and A for amount. And just date would be fine here. So we have the ability to add a new cost. What about the ability to be able to see all the costs? So I'll click to add a new screen and I'll do a table view of the costs. Again, I'll leave this at basic and click done. And straight away, I have a paginated table of all the data that's in my costs table. I'll do a little bit of configuring. I'll tidy up that title, capital C for costs. For the columns, I'll add all the columns. And actually, some of these I don't want to see. So I maybe have the project name first, then the category, then the description, amount and date incurred. It's a nicer and tidier table. If I preview it, I can sort by each of the fields. I can click on any record and I can see those full details there as well. So now we have a data collection form. We've got a way to view our data. Let's get on with building our dashboard. I'm going to call this a blank screen, just called home. Basic. I'm going to click this checkbox saying set as home screen. I'll go to navigation, configure the links, and then maybe move that link to the top. We say add new, and maybe call that summary. So to remind us what we're building, we're creating these cards and creating these charts. The workflow will be that we'll create a custom query in our data layer, and then we'll connect to that data in our design layer. Let's do that now. We'll go to data, click on PostgreSQL, queries, and create new query. And the first thing we're going to do is the total spend this month. So effectively, we're going to create a query that's going to return a single string. So I'm going to select the sum of amount as the total spend this month from the costs table. Now that will sum the total cost overall. So I'm going to need a where statement. So I'll say where extract month, date incurred. And that's a PostgreSQL function. When that equals extract month from current date. And extract the year. So year and year. So I can then intercept the response to that query and reformat the data in some way if I need to. And I can run the query here to see what I get back. So I'm going to get back a single field with a single value. So to save that query, we'll go to our design layer. I'm going to add a container because there are two cards I want to add. So I'll call this my card container. And within this container, I'm going to add a cards block. Now the cards block looks at some data. So in this case, it's looking at the costs and it's creating a card for each row of that data. It's going to paginate over all of them. And so we can add pagination and we can see all of the cards if we want. We don't want pagination and we don't want costs. In fact, we want to use the total spend this month. And there's only one card because there's only one result, which is great. I'm going to call this the total spend block. I'm going to set the title using this lightning bolt. I'm going to set this to total spend block, total spend. And let's put a pound sign in front of it. So there's our pound sign. Our subtitle, I'll just set as total spend this month. The other card I want is how much over or under budget I am overall. So I want to add together all of the budgets from my data table, all of the budgets, and I want to add together all of the costs to work out whether or not I'm over or under budget. Go to Postgres, queries, create new query, and I'll call this total over under. I'm going to use two subqueries. So with total budgets as, I'll select the sum of the budgets as total budgets from projects, and with total costs as, and again we'll do select sum of amount this time as total costs, and that's from the costs table. With those two things being true, select TB total budgets, TC.total and TB total budgets minus TC.total costs as difference from total budgets, which we'll refer to as TB, and total costs, which we'll refer to as TC. So run that query. We can see we get the three details: our total budgets, our total costs, and our difference. This would be negative, obviously, if we were over budget. If it's positive, we're still within budget. So to save that, go back to our design layer. This is going to be our over-under block. Our data this time is our total over-under. Our title this time will be the amount, so pounds, then over-under difference. And our subtitle will tell us whether or not we're over or under budget. And to do that, I'm going to use some JavaScript. I'm going to say over-under is going to be, is the difference. It's going to be a string, so I want to parse that as an integer, so parse int. If it's less than 0, it's going to be over budget. Otherwise, it's going to be under. I'll return a string. It's just going to say total over under and save. Total under budget. If I click on the container, I can click horizontal and it's going to look better side by side. I'll put them near the middle and I'll wrap them. So if the screen gets too small, like on a mobile, they'll be stacked one under the other. So that's our first piece. Next, we want this graph. And this graph is showing each project with its current total cost alongside its current budget and showing them side by side. So again, we're going to construct the query, then configure the graph. So let's do that. So go to data and I'll go to Postgres, queries, create new query, and this is going to be projects and budgets. So I'll say with project costs as, and then I'll do some selecting. I'll select project name and the sum of the amount as total cost from costs, and I'll group that by project name. So with that being true, select p.project_name, p.budget, and pc.total_cost from projects p. So into our projects table, and we're going to call it p. I want to join on that project costs from above. So I'm going to call PC. And what I want to join on are project name. So project name equals project name in both cases. Okay, so if I run that query, I get the first row back, project name, the budget, and the total cost. If I look at the preview, I can see all 5 of the rows, one for each of the projects. Let's save the query, go back to design. I'm going to add a chart now. So plus, add a chart. The chart block is going to be a bar chart. And I don't really care about the legend, so I'll get rid of that. The data I want to use is the projects and budgets. The label column I'm going to set to project name. And the data column, I'm going to select the total cost, the first one, and then the budget for the second one. And that's it. I've got my bar chart ready to go, showing the budgets and the total cost. So I land on this page, I can see how much I've spent, I can see how much I'm under or over budget, and I can see how I'm doing on each project. I'll call this my spend budget chart. So I want to add 2 more charts. One is going to show the number of transactions per category, and one's going to show the monthly expenditure. So let's do the transactions per category first. So Postgres, queries, create new query, and transactions per category. So I will select category and I'll count any field, but I'll do ID as the transaction count. from the costs table, and I'll group them by category, and I'm going to order them by transaction count. So from biggest to lowest. If I run the query, I can see materials, there's 10. If I preview, I can see materials, labor, all the rest of them are there ready to go. Let's save that. Over to my design tab. Add another chart. This one's going to be our transaction chart. It's going to be a pie chart. Our data is going to be our transaction per category. Our label column will be our category, and our data column will be our count. Okay, so we can see what's going on. We can get rid of the legend, and we just have this hover, which I think is helpful and useful. One more chart, and that's our monthly expenditure over time. Queries, create new query. It's going to be our monthly expenditure over time. Okay, so to do that, I will select. I'm going to get the month, so extract month from date incurred as month. I'll sum the amount as monthly expenditure. I'm going to do that from the costs table. But I only want to do it over the last 12 months. I'll do where date incurred is between current date minus an interval of 1 year and current date. I'm going to group that by month and order that by month. Let's run a query. List, see, looks pretty good. To the 10th month, looks good. And we'll save it. Go to our design. We'll add another chart. This will be our expenditure chart. This is going to be a line graph. It's going to use our monthly expenditure over time. We're going to use the label to be our month and the data to be our expenditure. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Now, there's a lot of scrolling on this page. Preview it. I did quite a lot of scrolling to get to the bottom. What I'd like is on a larger screen like mine, I'd like both these charts just to be side by side. So to allow that to happen, I'm going to create a container. I'm going to bring my transaction inside there and my expenditure chart inside there. I'm going to tell my container to go horizontal, and pie charts take up a bit more room. So I'm going to set in the custom CSS, I'll set the width to be 60% for my pie chart. And for my expenditure chart in the custom CSS, I'm going to set the width to be 40%. So I preview that. They look pretty good. I see it on full screen. Looks pretty good. Maybe this needs a title. And then we're ready to go. So this should be number of transactions, monthly expenditure. Okay, so that looks a bit better. That looks good. But if I start to look at this at a slightly smaller screen, the graphs start to be a bit squashed. And actually on a mobile device, it's going to be even smaller. I don't really want this. So when I'm on mobile, I want those to be stacked and I'll have to deal with the scroll. So what I'll do is I will copy this whole container. And now I've got 2 copies of the charts. The first one's going to be our full screen. So I'll just call this full screen. And in conditions, I'm going to configure this. I'll say hide this component if device.mobile equals boolean of. So if this is a mobile, hide this full screen block. Equally, if it's a tablet, I want you to hide it. So device.tablet is a boolean to true. So this should only be shown on full screen. So 2 versions of this. If I make this smaller, we now only have 1 version. As we get to roughly the width of what a tablet would be or a mobile would be. So now this second block, this is going to be our mobile tablet block. This one is going to be stacked. And the charts in here, I'm going to remove that custom styling. So I'll go to Style, Edit Custom CSS, and Delete. And for the other one, Styles, Edit Custom Styles, and Delete. So they'll take up the full width now. And this time, in conditions, I only want to show this component if the value of our device.mobile is boolean true. And equally, show if the value of device.tablet is boolean true. and save. On our full screen, we have these cards, we've got this budget table, we've got these graphs. As we start to get smaller, we have them stacked on top of each other. So if we're on a tablet, we'll scroll down, we'll see what's going on. So now we're ready to invite our users in and allow them to continue to add data into our database. We've created our data collection, our data view, and dashboard to be able to keep up to date with our real-time insights of how our spending's going for each of our projects. I hope you found this useful and it's given you some ideas for how you might use Budibase for your project management needs. If you found this useful, hit like and subscribe, and we hope to see you around here soon. Thanks. Bye.